breaking down Billy Joel's Always a Woman through a red pill lens. This is Radical Self-Respect with Jared Mello. Have the ebook and audiobook by the same name. I narrate the audiobook. And also thank you very much to everyone who's been liking, commenting, and subscribing. Please comment on this video if you like these kinds of breakdowns of songs through the red pill lens. So I'm going to jump right in today. And it's kind of going to be a series, I think, I'm going to do with this. And the first one will be Always a Woman by Billy Joel. And the reason I'm picking this song is because the reason I found the red pill was because of a female covert narcissist. And at that point, I listened to the lyrics, like right after I'd been discarded by her. I listened to the lyrics of this song, and so many of the lines really hit home and reminded me exactly of her. And I was like, wow, I wonder if Billy wrote this woman about a narcissistic woman, wrote this song about a narcissistic woman or some cluster B woman. No one will ever know, but I'm going to break down the lyrics here line by line. And I guess we'll call it an interpretation of how I see it now. So, without further delay, the first line of the songs: she can kill with a smile, and she can wound with her eyes. So, right off the bat, I would say Billy is letting this woman really impact him. So, she can wound with her eyes, meaning that all she has to do is look at Billy in a certain way, and he can be wounded or hurt, and she can kind of knock him off of his emotional center. And then she can kill with a smile, meaning that the woman can probably manipulate Billy as long as she smiles at him the right way, and probably other people too. And that's a sign right there. It's not good for a guy to be that vulnerable to a woman's charms, whether it be her smile or whether it be with her eyes. Not good. Not good to be so easily knocked off your emotional center. Next, and she can ruin your faith with her casual lies. Now, that line to me means, obviously, she's probably lying about certain things casually, and he's probably ignoring red flags. Like, if this is what she's doing, ruin your faith with her casual lies, like, that's a red flag, baby. Like, that's something you should probably watch out for. And the key would be, what is she lying about? Is she lying about seeing other people? Is she lying about dating, sleeping with other people? Are they more minuscule lies? What are they? But it's not good that you're having your faith ruined with her casual lies, that's for sure. And next, and she only reveals what she wants you to see. And I could really relate to that line too, because the narcissistic woman in my life, like whenever I try to pin her down on something, you would get word salad. You would get some sort of roundabout story. But anything but the truth, normally. You couldn't pin her down. You couldn't get her to tell you the truth, right? It would be a runaround story. And so I can relate to that line too. Next, she hides like a child, but she's always a woman to me. Now, hides like a child, hides from what? I would imagine hiding from some form of accountability is what I would imagine. And so she probably puts up this childish-like defense when Billy called her out on something. Then she would go back and she would resort back to her teenage self, this childlike self, to deflect, because it sounds like she didn't want to be held accountable. But regardless of all this, she's always a woman to Billy, which means that Billy probably has some one-itis for this woman, and he's able to overlook all of her flaws or justify them all away because he has one-itis for her. And don't get it twisted, it sounds like this woman is completely taking advantage of that in him. Now, let's go on. Now, she can lead you to love, she can take you or leave you. Now, to me, Sam Vaknin has talked about this before, but he says narcissists have a fleeting attachment style. So they can love you, but they can also take you or leave you, which means they don't healthily attach. They don't pair bond. So when you're with them, they can see you, and they can hang out with you, and they can have fun with you. And this goes for narcissistic and borderline women both. But they can see you and have fun with you, but when you're not in front of them, like, you're hardly even existing. So that's why they can take you or leave you. And they can lead you to love, but they're not really going to attach. You're not going to pair bond with them. Next, she can ask for the truth, but she'll never believe you. And again, the narcissistic woman in my life, that's how she was too. She would ask me, are you on other dating apps? Are you talking to other girls? And I really wasn't, because I was not red pill aware at the time. And we weren't even exclusive. And I wasn't doing that. And she would never believe me. She goes, I don't believe you. You're talking to tons of girls. You're probably sleeping with tons of girls. And at the time, I wasn't. So she asked for the truth, but she would never believe me. And she'll take what you give her as long as it's free. So a lot of guys will do good things for women, and they'll take them, but if they expect something in return, the woman wants no part of it. And of course, let me get this out of the way now. This whole video, it can be applied to men too, in certain instances, but this is Billy talking about a woman, so we're talking about it from those gender angles. Next. Yeah, she steals like a thief, but she's always a woman to me. Now, quite literally, I think towards the end of Billy Joel's relationship with this woman, I heard she was really trying to extort him from money and royalties. And so it might quite literally be she was trying to steal like a thief from Billy. But then we go into the chorus. Oh, she takes care of herself. She can wait if she wants. She's ahead of her time. Oh, and she never gives out, and she never gives in. She just changes her mind. So, what does that mean? She can take care of herself. In particular, a narcissistic woman, they're very self-reliant, and they're very independent. And they really just don't need anyone. Now, they choose to have supplies, absolutely. But they're not dependent on any single one of them. Then, she can wait if she wants. She's ahead of her time. So basically, things go as she wants them to go. And a lot of women claim to say, oh, she's ahead of her time, meaning like she's a strong, independent woman. She was doing this before women knew how to do this, before it was commonplace. And that could be what it means, but to me it means that she's not attaching. It's all on her frame. It's all in her mental point of origin, not Billy's. And then we have, oh, and she never gives out, and she never gives in. She just changes her mind. So, never giving in means, to me, she probably can't admit when she's wrong. And she probably can't be held accountable for anything. But say she does recognize she's wrong, she'll never admit it to Billy. And hence she'll just change her mind about whatever the subject matter was. Oh, I decided to do this. And Billy could be thinking to himself, oh, that's what I wanted you to do. That's what I was trying to get you to do. But she has the ego that she can't give in. She can't admit she was wrong. So then, second verse. And she'll promise you more than the Garden of Eden. So, as narcissists of both genders do, they can future fake, and they have a shared fantasy. So they'll promise you more than the Garden of Eden. But it's all a mirage. It's all part of the love bombing, where they build things up, they act like you're going to be here for this, that, and the other, that we're going to have this beautiful future together, they're going to love you forever. But that's not really how it goes at all. And then the next one here, this is really telling, this line. Then she'll carelessly cut you and laugh while you're bleeding. Now that's, I mean, some women say that this is a love song, a very mature love song about a woman. But to me, ultimately, and this line begins to give it away, that Billy Joel is writing from having a trauma bond with this woman, right? And so she does all of these things, but he's trauma bonded. He's codependent on her, and he can't see past it. He can't have boundaries with it, and it really hurts him. So she carelessly cuts him and laughs while he's bleeding. And it reminded me a lot of what my narcissistic ex did to me. When I used to watch dogs at a farmhouse, and there was one dog in particular I had for multiple years, and they had to remove her because she was going to go stay at a farm in Missouri instead. And I remember distinctly, I was telling the girl about it. Oh, I lost my Rainy dog. They took her to Missouri. And I was kind of bummed about it. And then she said in like a malicious voice, "Did you cry every night? Did you cry and cry?" And she had like a gleeful tone in her voice about it, like she was getting glee and satisfaction and maybe schadenfreude from me being miserable about the dog leaving. Pretty cruel. And kind of laughed about it. And then the other thing she would laugh about too, she was telling me a story about how this guy that really fell in love with her. And again, watch some of my other videos on narcissistic women so you can avoid these tragedies. But so this guy fell in love with her, and she did the whole routine. She devalued and then discarded him, and then he killed himself. And she was telling me the story, and then how the mother of the guy who killed himself was telling the girl that I knew, oh, she was blaming her for him dying. And she was laughing about it as she was telling me the story. And it was like, yeah, carelessly cut you and laugh while you're bleeding. That's exactly what she did. But she brings out the best and the worst you can be. That's the next line. So again, when things are going well with the person you have a trauma bond with or the person you're obsessed with, things are great. And they can really encourage you in the love bombing phase. And they can really propel you forward into being something like the best version of yourself. But conversely, when they're looking at you negatively, when they're angry at you or splitting on you or devaluing you, then the opposite occurs. Then it brings out the worst in you. And again, this all happens as a man in particular when we get off of our center. When we allow a woman to push us to and fro, we get subject to their whips and whims and their love bombing, devaluing, discarding. Not good. Next. But blame it all on yourself because she's always a woman to me. Again, very telling. Billy can't, he thinks it's all his fault. All the things she's doing, this woman, even though they're very toxic behaviors and probably because of a cluster B type woman, well, it can't be her. She'll never admit she's wrong anyway. She'll never accept any accountability. So it's just because he's trying to jump through the hoops to make her happy, but nothing that he does makes her happy. So blame it all on himself. He still has one-itis for her. No matter what she does, Billy Joel has the love goggles on, and he can't see through it. And then it goes to the chorus. And now to the final stanza here. She was frequently kind, and she's suddenly cruel. Very similar to the carelessly cut you and laugh while you're bleeding part. But again, that's how, I imagine that's exactly how she was to him. Where it'd be light, nice, love bombing 1 second, and the next second, poking, prodding, picking, trying to find things that the guy should be doing better, nagging, being cruel purposefully. And some of this being cruel purposely thing, it reminds me of Kathy from East of Eden. I'm not sure if anyone's read that book out there, but I remember the first time I read that book. I didn't really believe there were people like that in the world. There weren't people as evil as Kathy. But after my experience with the female covert narcissist, I realized, actually no, that's probably absolutely real. And people are absolutely capable of that. And I didn't believe it until then. But yeah, there's some people that have the capabilities of being extremely cruel. And John Steinbeck, who wrote East of Eden, he had some pretty interesting explanations as to how people get that way. And I highly recommend reading that book too. But onward. But she can do as she pleases. She's nobody's fool. To me, that sounds like a woman that kind of knows her power in the world, especially if she's attractive. So a lot of women didn't recognize their power back then, in the 70s when this song was written. but she did. So she knows she can do as she pleases, and most guys, very blue-pilled, couldn't call her out on it. And so maybe sometimes also people would try to take advantage of women back in the day, but that woman he's writing the song about would not allow it. And I could see women being proud of that part. Now, and she can't be convicted. She's earned her degree. And again, I picture that as being very hard to pin down, not being able to be held accountable about anything. You can't convict her of any of her wrongdoings. And she's an educated woman. She's smart. And so she's able to like sidestep the accountabilities. And so very clever. And the most she will do is throw shadows at you. But she's always a woman to me. And again, that reminds me of when you're trying to get the woman to tell you the truth. You're trying to find out and pin her down. Like, hey, what's going on with this? Why didn't you do this? Or why did you do that? But she'll give you stories. She'll give you word salad. She'll give you things that just don't make sense. And like you'll feel confused and your head will be spinning when you're done trying to speak to her and hold her accountable to things. And that's why I equate that to throwing shadows. You're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what will stick, but you're not being truthful. You're not being completely honest, that's for sure. But again, she's always a woman to Billy, meaning regardless of all of her flaws, he has a trauma bond more than likely and has one-itis for this woman, and he'll justify it and rationalize it, all of her behaviors, because he loves her, and he preaches to the altar of love being the highest ideal.